Welcome everybody for joining us. My name is Dan Tryman, and I'm the CEO of New England Israel Business Council. In short, it's NEIBC. And our mission at NEIBC is to strengthen the business relationship between Israel and New England. And we do so by dividing our efforts in three areas. One is the investment side. We do represent Bird Foundation in Massachusetts. Bird is a funding mechanism that was founded by the Israeli government and the US federal government. The second bucket is we work with individual companies all the way from the ideation stage to market ready. And the third bucket we are involved is building the ecosystem, which this webinar is part of it. In addition to that, we do quite a bit of face-to-face meetings. We deal with delegations from Israel to the New England area and vice versa. We work with both governments and other NGOs. This webinar focuses on women health technologies, which we started to get involved and focus on about 5 years ago. And just to give you a couple of data points, 5 years ago, the total investment in women health tech companies was around $800 billion. This year, the first half of 2024, the investment was about 1.2 billion, and it's forecast to be $2.5 billion this year, which means it's 4 times larger than 5 years ago. But that is telling only part of the story. Still only 4% of the R&D funding for health tech technology goes to women health. Only 4%. So there's still a long way to go. And with that, I would like to welcome 4 amazing professionals: Avital Adler, Hadass Ziso, Miriam Oron, and Daniela Gilboa. Welcome and thank you for joining us. And with that, I'll pass the talking sticks to Avital Adler. Avital, the floor is yours.
So welcome everyone, and thank you so much, Dan, for orchestrating and organizing this wonderful event. I'm really looking forward and excited for the discussion and presentation today, and really looking forward to hearing and to learning from our 3 amazing panelists. So we'll first kind of do a very quick overview. I'll say a few words, give a few numbers and statistics on the current status and gaps in women's health, and then quickly shift it over to hear from our panelists, each one about her company and her journey. And at the end, hopefully we'll have some time and we'll open it up for a few more, for some questions. Please feel free to write questions in the chat throughout the discussion, and I'll do my best to kind of ask and raise them as we go along. So just a few words of introduction about myself. I'm a healthcare dedicated investor and neuroscientist. In the past 4 years, I've been part of the investment team at Emun. Initially, I was more focused on investing in private companies, and in the past about 2.5 years, most of my focus was actually in building Emun's public hedge fund. And as I said, my background is academic. I'm a neuroscientist. I did my PhD in Israel at the Hebrew University in neural computation and my postdoc at NYU. My research was mostly focused on learning and memory. And most importantly, I'm very passionate, and I've been trying to kind of spearhead at Emun and really drive forward investment in the area in the field of women's health. So as I said, let's kind of first start with setting the stage for the panelists and saying a few words about women's health and about the gender health gap, right? So I think that by now we can say that there is real kind of, as Dan alluded to, increased and strong awareness for the gender health gap. So just a few words and a few numbers to kind of say on that. We know that according to the World Economic Forum, women spend 25% more of their life in debilitating health than men. And this is kind of manifested on both directions, right? Both on the diagnosis side, as we're seeing underdiagnosis and diagnoses that come in much later and misdiagnosis, and also unfortunately on the treatment side, on all kind of areas of that. So to give a few numbers behind those statements, on average, women are diagnosed 4 years later than men. For example, women are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes on average 4.5 years later than men. Women also suffer from misdiagnosis, as many of the symptoms of describing those diseases and indications are based on how the disease is manifested with men, which I think one of the strongest example being in heart attacks. So women are about 50% more likely to have misdiagnosis of heart attack than men. But this is also true for other indications in kind of different areas, right? There are very clearly misdiagnosis in ADHD and in autism spectrum disorder. And unbelievably, even in what we call women-specific diseases, right? Like endometriosis. So in endometriosis, women are typically diagnosed at about 7 to 10 years delay from the symptom onset. And I'm sure that Hadass will discuss this in much more detail. And as I said, the gap is not just on the diagnosis side, but also on all aspects of the treatment side. Again, one of the examples, due to different metabolism, women are much more likely to get missed dosing of the treatment. And in fact, if we're looking at the years, kind of an analysis that was done, so between 1980 and 2023, 29% of drug withdrawals from the market were due to women's health risk and adverse events. And at the same years, only 8% of withdrawals were due to men's health risk, right? So we, I think we're all aware of this gap, of this persistent gap. And obviously the gap is not a result of worse biology, but of a different biology that was for many years overlooked and to a certain extent even ignored. And we're really looking describing of layers of bias that contributed to this kind of to this persistent gap. And in fact, the modern medicine was designed by men and for men. And this kind of resulted in this gap that we're talking about. And the layers of bias are really at all different aspects, whether we're talking about funding, research, and also social factors. And all three of those elements are kind of connected in between them and kind of one lead to another. So we're seeing, we saw reduced funding by investors, by VCs, less grants, as Dan alluded to, even less R&D spending from the big pharmas, and this is also true today. And I think that part of this kind of reduced funding goes back to social factors and to the lack of awareness initially, and also even to the fact that many of those issues were once considered taboo and not issues that were talked about, right? So this kind of feeds one into the other. And the last element, which I think is super critical and is still super critical today, is the element of the research. Very limited research, poor data quality. Again, I think a lot of it was hindered by reduced funding incentives. And as I started saying, I think, and we'll discuss a little bit today, I think that the data and the scientific gaps are actually critical and are still part of the big breaks of innovation today. And unfortunately, those are things that will take not just money, but a lot of time and probably years to kind of close the gap on the scientific knowledge and understanding side, which in a lot of aspects is the fuel to motivation. So I'll just, close this kind of very, very quick intro with a little bit more of an optimistic outlook, because there's clearly still gaps. But I think that we can still have a little bit more of an optimistic outlook. I think that we are starting to see major signs of change. We're definitely starting to see higher awareness. We're starting to see change funding, tons of deal flow, a lot of innovation. We're seeing a lot of new companies that are being formed. And I do think that one of the drivers and engines for the change is the increase in change funding. So, as Dan alluded to, but a little bit of a different kind of numbers or example, but showing the same picture. So if you look at the first half of 2023, there was a 340% increase in Femtech-related investment compared to only 28% increase in all health tech technologies, right? So we're starting to see signs of change. And we have three amazing entrepreneurs that I think are leading this change. And therefore, it's high time to shift gears and to start hearing from them and from their journey and from their technology. So let's start with Hadass to share about her company and her journey. Hadass, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Avital, and thank you, Dan, for this opportunity. I see here all the new friends, so very exciting to be here with all of you. And I'm happy that you finished with an optimistic approach because, of course, we must be optimistic in what we are doing. So I share your feelings. Let me open the deck. You see my deck, right?
Yes.
Great. So I'm here as I'm passionate about impacting the lives of millions of endometriosis patients worldwide. Endometriosis, you briefly talked about it, is the chronic debilitating condition associated with pain, irregular menstrual cycle, and infertility. It's all around us. You can ask afterwards your friends, your family members. You will see that 1 out of 10 women in reproductive age suffer from this condition. So for sure, you know one. The US burden for this condition is huge, $120 billion in the US per year. And actually, recently, the NIH recognized this and opened a prize, just like in the Corona days, a fast-track prize, because they realized the significance of this condition. The women are suffering for up to 11 years until they are diagnosed with this disease. The reason is that it is caused by lesions so small that they are invisible in any imaging modality today, in non-invasive imaging modality. And therefore, the patients are misdiagnosed often, being told it's in your head, even nowadays, unfortunately. By the way, this is Wikipedia image for the word hysteria, that it comes from a similar source. And the patients are forced to undergo surgical diagnostic surgery. So our solution, the Revelant system, is a robotic AI-powered ultrasound system that seamlessly integrates with any off-the-shelf ultrasound, while our robotic arm holds and moves the transducer, as you can see here, in a pre-planned trajectory over the area of interest by streaming the data to our software. We produce very, very high resolution images, as you can see here in this example of where I scan my own arm. These are the original data, and these are the reconstructed data resulting from taking a frame every 10 microns. And this is why you can see a very clear image. Once you have this data, the physician can do segmentation of organs and pathologies, have objective 3D imaging, just like MRI. And we enable multimodality imaging because of the repetitive nature of the robotics. So we can do the standard V mode scan that you know, contrast enhanced mode, elastography Doppler, and more to have more data on the same area. So this is our system, Revelan. It is, sorry, just jumped forward, composed of a hardware component that is an add-on to any ultrasound system, and a software component that produces objective 3D imaging. And this part is very important because this is one of the pain points of ultrasound today, the very operator-dependent method. And finally, we use computer vision AI algorithms for the detection of 1 millimeter lesions that are today, as I explained, invisible. Eventually, this will be used as a disease management tool, not only for complete initial diagnosis, but also for surgery pre-planned that today is almost blind, and not less important, objective routine follow-up, because this condition is chronic and progressive. And it is of high importance to keep monitoring, enable the physicians to react on time, and improve the quality of life for those patients, actually in the same way you do today for cancer. So I was previously asked why robotics, and the best way to show it is by showing you some results of our preclinical trials, where we used an off-the-shelf ultrasound transducer, moved it very, very slowly. And in this demonstration, there are 2 lesions and the bladder of a small mouse. You can see the scale here. The bladder is the black circle filled with fluid, and it's very easy to detect. And this is actually the size that can be detectable today in the different imaging modalities above 5 millimeter. Now here are the lesions, and I will show you again in live where they are. Here, and they were actually gone in the blink of an eye. And this is the reason why the physician with exactly the same ultrasound cannot detect the lesions in real time. Our human capabilities are limited. We cannot interpret the data that we see fast enough. So that is why we acquire it, process it frame by frame, and can detect 1 millimeter thick lesions, as you can see in this example. We also showed superior contrast enhanced imaging. This is the standard method of GE healthcare system, and this is our method where, because of the multimodality imaging, we can subtract the background and have great result for the lesion over here compared to this. Another benefit is that with our method, we keep the resolution, the very, very small pixel size in distance, unlike the vaginal approach, the standard approach that you can see here, that as you go far from the transducer, the resolution is much worse. And we are very excited from the recent results of a woman that we scanned. This is her MRI with 5 millimeter slice thickness, and you can see the reconstructed image is very, very poor. And with our system here, we scanned her bladder. You can see the reconstruction that looks almost as if we scanned in this plane because of the 75 times higher resolution compared to MRI. So this is our timeline. We started the ideation last year, and we are, even though we are a medical device, we are looking at very fast go-to-market plan, having our first FDA clearance next year, in parallel to beginning of our first in human clinical trials in the first quarter of 2025, and then having the final clearance for both our hardware and software at the beginning of 2027. Our business model is a B2B model where we have the capital, the robotic system that you've seen in the animation, and we think to loan it to the hospital to avoid budgeting with the hospital committees, and just charge per scan per patient, as we recognize a bundle of existing CPT codes that can enable us to charge $1,500 per patient. As for our go-to-market strategy, we know that we can sell about 10 systems directly to endometriosis experts. And initially, we expect them to use it for pre-plan of surgeries and follow-up after the surgeries. And after this, we will partner with US distributors. We already approached GE Healthcare, Siemens, and Philips to establish those relationships that can eventually lead to an exit. So endometriosis is only our first market, and I think that's the beauty of this, because from Femtech, we can go to about everything, including cancer, monitoring and follow-up, kidney stone, other conditions like chronic colitis, and actually everything that ultrasound can see, we can maximize the quality of the image and make it look better. And it's interesting to say that this market is actually 10 times larger than all cancer types together, relating what you said, Avital, about the inequalities here. So it's a huge market opportunity. McKinsey also recognized it as a $250 billion market. We validated our concept with over 30 physicians worldwide, having the very, very good feedback of market demand. They actually have no good solutions. So they were very enthusiastic to partner with us for clinical studies and acquisitions once we are ready. As for the competitive landscape, as you probably know, it's always good that there are more players in the market. There are already more than 6 companies, different companies that are working on endometriosis diagnosis by biomarkers in the body. And throughout our market validation, we realized that this is not sufficient. The physicians do require mapping for determining the disease stage, preparing for surgery, and as I explained, continuous monitoring of those patients. As for the technological analysis, we've looked into many other solutions and realized that we are the only system that produces high image quality by design without deforming the tissue that we scan. So this is how we see the future of endometriosis with our system, Revilan. The patients will have no more vicious cycles of late diagnosis, trial and error treatment, recurrence, and again, late diagnosis. They will no more compromise on their career, family plans, and lives, and receive superior care by physicians and hospitals that can now diagnose, monitor, and treat more patients as we reduce the issue of experts bottleneck. So this is our great team. My partner is Professor Moshe Shoham, who is working with me for the last 12 years, and we make a very good team, a very experienced team with multiple exits. We have Dr. Eyal Ron, actually in your community in Boston, and you can also reach out to him and meet him. We have already fundraised over $1 million to date for the proof of concept that I showed you in preclinical trials. We are now looking for matching for 1 million grant from the Israel Innovation Authority in order to complete our first in-human trial. I can also say I will be visiting Boston mid-November, so whoever wants to meet with me, feel free to contact. I'll be happy to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Adas. This is super exciting and super important. So we have kind of, we'll do a quick round of a few questions, and then we'll move on to make sure that we can hear from all 3 of you. So maybe the first question I'll ask, I think that endometriosis is considered a condition not just with a low rate of or delayed diagnosis, but also low awareness. And low awareness, I think, not just among, but also among women, right? I can tell you that from my experience, when I first started as an investor looking at the women's health field, I'll be honest, a little bit ashamed. I wasn't aware, right? I didn't know, I came into a counter with the indication just from this, which is quite crazy, right? Given that, I'm not 18. So have a few years behind me. So would love to hear kind of your thoughts on that and your perspective on that. Do you feel that awareness has changed a little bit over the past years? Do you feel that you still need to educate people that, investors, women, physicians that you come across? What's kind of your perspective on that?
Yes, all true. So yes, there is still a problem of awareness. I think it relates to what you said at the beginning of the women's taboo. We don't talk, we don't share that we are in pain. One of the other reason is that, they teach you that the period should be painful, and you don't know to what extent, because it's very personal. But I do feel the awareness is rising. The foundations have rose all over the world. Like I said, the NIH just issued a special prize. There are grants for women from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and another new one from the US. So it is coming, but not much of a change yet. I can say that in the last 2 years, if I compare it to day one, when I told people, do you know endometriosis? Most of them said, what? And the what? And now it's more, the answer is more common answer is yes, of course. So I'm happy with that, but there's still a lot of road to take. And regarding investors, then yes, absolutely. I was recently asked, it's difficult for them to understand why do you need it. I mean, you don't die from endometriosis, right? So why do you need to do anything? And it's a perception that for quality of life. So yes, they don't die, but they suffer from pain. They have infertility issues. It's one of the leading causes for infertility. So, okay, they don't die, but they should be managed exactly like they manage cancer today. And this is my perspective. So there's still a way to go, but I feel it's in the right direction. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that's good to hear, and also, also sad, I guess, on both ways. So maybe one question here from the chat. What were the main difficulties you encountered when establishing your go-to-market strategy?
Well, actually, I think my challenge, my personal challenge, even though I'm a second-time founder, is say I never sold anything. Maybe cookies in there, but nothing serious. So that will be my challenge. As for go-to-market, my approach is just to keep in touch with the top physicians and just establish the relationships from day one toward clinical studies, and then this can facilitate sales, small-scale sales. Eventually, we will have to partner with large distributors. As of course, as a small Israeli startup, we cannot go global, but for the initial sales, I think it's based on personal connections, and we are on it.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, thanks so much, Adas. Well, I think we'll move on to Miriam, and then hopefully, at the end, we'll come back to all three of you. So Miriam, the floor is yours.
So hi, thank you, Avital. Thank you, Dan. I'm really happy to be here. And so I'm Miriam Moron, CEO and co-founder of DermaBio. I have 20 years of experience in the biotech, skincare, and medical device industries. And I'm here to talk to you about skin. When you look at your skin, you probably don't realize how much information it contains about your health. And this is because skin surface has hundreds of molecules, and some of them can be used as biomarkers. This is an example of how we can predict if a patient is going to respond or not to a biologic drug. These are biomarkers taken from patient skin before being treated, and you can see that we can distinguish between those who are going to be responders or non-responders. And why do we need this? Because there is an autoimmune epidemic with a 12% annual growth in prevalence. Autoimmune diseases are chronic debilitating diseases. Examples are lupus, Crohn's, rheumatoid arthritis, and psoriasis. Patients with moderate to severe disease are treated with biologic drugs, which are the fastest growing category in the pharma industry. The global sales for biologics for autoimmune alone are expected to grow from 71 billion in 2023 to 126 billion in 2033. 1 out of 4 patients will not respond to a given medication. And today, there's no way to know which patient will respond to which treatment. The cost of annual treatment is huge, $40,000 to $400,000 per patient. Women are disproportionately affected by autoimmune disease. They tend to respond less to medication and have more adverse events. Thus, we have DermaBio. DermaBio applies skin biomarkers for precision medicine to treat autoimmune diseases with biologic drugs. Since there's no way to know which patient will respond to which medication, patients are subject to redundant trial and error rounds, resulting in high costs to the payer. It takes 3 months to know if a patient is going to respond or not, and their health deteriorates while they're not being treated or being treated with a drug that doesn't attenuate their symptoms. Patients that do respond will need to change medications on an average of every 5 years, making this problem of trial and error a recurring challenge. Since the cost of medication is so high, every time the patient gets the wrong medication, it costs an extra $12,000, an average of $12,000 for trial and error. Now multiply that by an epidemic. DermaBio has a non-invasive, cost-effective test to predict patients' response to medication. The test cost $800. Now I'm asking you, wouldn't it make sense to screen all 4 patients at $800 each, amounting to $3,200, and avoid the one who's not going to respond and cost $12,000? So by using the DermaBio test, the payer saves up to 73% of the extra cost for biologic treatment. Our product is made of 2 components, a sample collection kit and a software. The kit collects skin biomarkers totally non-invasively, and it's very easy. It takes 30 seconds. Anyone can do it. The skin sample is sent to a laboratory, and the skin biomarkers are measured in a laboratory using commercial ELISA kits. The software predicts patients' response based on clinical and demographic features like age of disease onset, comorbidities, previous treatments, and on the levels of the skin biomarkers. The physicians who are the users of this product are provided with a table listing, the expected efficacies of each of the drug. Behind the scenes, our first predictive model is for psoriasis, and it's based on retrospective data on 700 patients. This was built using machine learning, and what you can see here is for the 4 drugs used, and is the number of patients in each of the treatment groups. The negative and positive predictive values are listed after testing the algorithm. So this is based on data alone, and we're working to include the information of the skin biomarkers. You can see that compared to what we have today, which is 50-50% trial and error, this is a pretty good result because we can predict response to therapy in about an accuracy of 80%, but we need to be better. We need to get to 90%. This is what our competitor is doing, and this is what physicians expect. We have recently learned that some of women's physiological features correlate with autoimmune disease severity. Examples are number of children, age of first menstruation, and number of PMS symptoms. Avital mentioned the gaps. So this is one of the places we see a huge gap in research. These features have been neglected in the past. Even in questionnaires of quality of life, you don't have questions regarding women's well-being and their physiological features. So we plan to include these features in our predictive models. So if I sum up just this part, DermaBio's product will enable personalization of prescription commercial available drugs for individuals' response. We will lower healthcare costs and significantly improve patients' life. We are unique in that we're completely non-invasive and in that we're including women's physiological features in our predictive models. Now, when we speak about precision medicine, of course, in the men population, we have many subpopulations, a 16-year-old boy and a 46-year-old man that have the same disease. They don't exactly have the same physiology, and they will not have similar response to the various drugs. But in the women's population, we have much, much more subpopulations, and these haven't been elucidated yet. And this is especially important in autoimmune diseases, which disproportionately affect women. I'm very lucky to have an amazing team. My co-founder, Dr. Meital Portugal, is a PhD in pharmacology, and she's an expert in monitoring skin biomarkers and in developing methodologies for measuring biomarkers. Guy Shalom is a dermatologist, and he's our third co-founder. We are part of the MindUp Digital Health Incubator. MindUp is a partnership of Pitango, Medtronic, IBM, and the Rambam Medical Center. And we have a very capable team members in our board and advisory board that are experts in commercializing healthcare products. We have a US-based team that are very experienced in commercializing these specific products, especially Dom Welbecker and Darren Lewis, who used to work for our competitors. So they have done this path in the past, and they know the pitfalls. We are lucky to have also Mara Rosenfeld, our Chief Business Officer, and Dr. Doug Kress from UPMC. So our technological capabilities expand far beyond autoimmune diseases and personalized biologic therapy. Meital and I have experience of 20 years with skin biomarkers in various conditions. For example, chronic kidney disease, diabetes. We started out in DermaBio with autoimmune disease and with biologic drugs because we identified a business opportunity. In our past, we have raised $12 million in EU funding. The FP7 and Horizon 2020 projects that we led were declared as success stories, and it gave us the background to found DermaBio. So once we secured a pre-seed investment from the MindUp Digital Health Incubator and the Israel Innovation Authority, we established DermaBio. So we already have a first model for predictive response to 4 biologic drugs for psoriatic patients. We're running clinical studies on 2 indications, on psoriasis and on atopic dermatitis, and we submitted 2 patents. We have a US-based team, and one of our atopic dermatitis study is a collaboration with one of the large pharma companies. The DermaBio platform can be leveraged to 2 segments. One is the clinical healthcare provider and payer network. Just like I presented in the beginning, the payer saves money. The physician is provided with a tool for prescribing the best medication, but we can also leverage this for pharma because our non-invasive technology is interesting for them. It can be used in some cases in place of biopsies, and you can take, we can sample from your face and from various locations in the body. We can take tens of samples from the same patient. This we can't do with biopsies, and you can't do with tape stripping. And this is the reason that the pharma companies are interested in this technology. The TAM for our first 2 products is a little more than $6 billion. And we already are in contact with pharma companies and also with healthcare providers and payers. Our competitors are Mindera Health. They were the first ones to commercialize a product that predicts response to biologic therapy in psoriasis. They have a device that you place on your skin for 20 minutes, and with microneedles, which pull the biomarkers upwards, and that is sent to the lab. And what they do is an omics analysis. They track about 500 biomarkers. So this procedure is semi-invasive. It's uncomfortable for patients. This is not something you would want to sample from face or other locations. And since their technology is more expensive, they were not able to get reimbursement. Castle Biosciences are a well-established company working in the oncology space. And we know that they're developing also a product to predict response to biologic therapy for psoriasis and atopic dermatitis, so we are monitoring them. Their technology is expected to be more expensive than DermaBio. So we're here to offer collaboration. We're looking for design partners. Our next study is going to be in the US. And we're, of course, also looking for funding. And I will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks so much, Miriam, for sharing this. Super exciting. So we have time for very one, I think, very quick question. So I think that you're situated kind of in that respect in a little bit of a unique position that enables you to tell the story of the company, both from the angle of women's health, but also to kind of not talk about women's health entirely, right, and discuss the precision medicine and diagnosis in autoimmune disease in the general context. So we'd love to get kind of, if you can share a little bit your view on that. Do you typically pitch it differently and kind of to different environments or to different audience? Do you feel that the angle of women's health is beneficial? Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So we had like hundreds of hours of discussions about this because we do have split personalities. Are we biotech? Are we digital health? Are we AI? Are we women's health or only autoimmune? And eventually, Meital and I, as being both women and scientists, and realizing the scientific gap and realizing that all the drugs, the laboratory models were developed on male mice, and we have hundreds of antibodies as women in our bodies that can trigger autoimmune diseases. And these biomarkers haven't been even studied and identified. So being that we're both women and scientists, we felt a responsibility to stick to this DNA. And this is something that was so strong that we started also a non-profit or movement, a grassroots organization, to promote the awareness and education of the sex and gender disparities in autoimmune diseases. And we have some members of this organization with us here in the audience. And we do webinars, and we submitted some grants to study specifically the specific physiology of women in autoimmune diseases.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Miriam. So now, last but definitely not least, Daniela.
Hi, everyone. I'll just share the screen. So I'm Daniela. I'm the co-founder and CEO of AIVF, and I live and breathe embryos. I'm a clinical embryologist and a biostatistician. And so what we're trying to do, hoping to do, and I think we are well established now to say that we succeed in that, is we optimize IVF through AI. So making better, this was a title that I loved that was in The Economist a few months ago. And so this is our mission and vision, to make baby making better. So it's pretty much comes down to reducing time and cost of pregnancy. Just for the sake of data here, we are an Israeli company, and I think most people don't realize, but we're very lucky in Israel because IVF is pretty much subsidized. So the treatments here are paid, and so we don't really feel it in our pockets. And so according to the Israeli law, a patient is entitled to IVF pretty much until success. It says until the age of 45 or until the patient has 2 kids from the same spouse. There's no place in the globe that allows people to do IVF pretty much until success. In the US, I take it to the US, it's pretty much out of pocket. It's very expensive. It's about $25,000 on average. And since it's not optimized and we really don't know how to do good IVF care, we would need, or the science or the industry would need about, the average time to pregnancy is about 3, 4, 5 cycles. So reducing time to pregnancy is pretty much what we are here to do. And so reducing time to pregnancy, less money to pregnancy is pretty much democratizing IVF. So how do we do it? Look at the picture. An image is worth 1,000 words. So this is a picture, an image of London O'Neill, a baby that was born after 4 years, 7 cycles, 1,616 shots. The mother kept all the syringes that she used during the IVF journey, and she posted this on Facebook right after the delivery, and this got viral, and The Guardian followed up. And so then it just became, this was back in 2018. So I think this really started the conversation of, are we really doing good IVF care, and what do we need to do to offer people good IVF care, so people would not need to give up the dream of having a baby because they don't have the means or the money. So this is London O'Neill. And so just another data point, the US is missing about 5 million IVF cycles. I would give you a different point of view. By the end of the century, it's expected that about 5% of global population would be IVF. So this means we have now huge demand, and it's something that we have to take care of. Okay, so now going back, let's dive deep into the IVF lab where the magic happens. I'll just show, there are many or a few point solutions, or sorry, a few points in time in the IVF journey that needs AI assistant, but this is the most crucial one. Is the $1 million question is in IVF is which embryo becomes a baby. What you see here, these are like about 10, 12 embryos from one patient, kind of look the same. We would really have, we can't really choose the one that would make a baby. And just understand that if we choose the wrong one, this fails, and the couple, the people go home empty-handed, and we have to start all over again. And in the US, where it's about $25,000 a cycle, this is a big problem. So this is the $1 million question of which embryo becomes a baby. And this is the dilemma. 2 different patients, one had 1 embryo, the other had 6 embryo. Back in the days where we transferred 6 embryos back to the uterus, we do not do it now anymore, but back in the days, about 10 years ago, both resulted in a singleton, in 1 healthy baby. So this is the dilemma. We really don't have the answer, or science does not have the answer to understand which embryo becomes a baby, and this is where AI comes in. So I'm going to take you to 1950. I just found it today, and it's mind-blowing. Alan Turing, who I think the first one that talked about machine learning and the imitation game, back in 1950, he talks about we may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields, but which are the best ones to start with? Unbelievable. This is 1950. So this is now 2024. What we managed to do, and this is our AI models published in Nature magazine recently. What we managed to do is develop AI models that are able to predict whether an embryo is genetically normal or abnormal, and what are the chances of this specific embryo to implant and become a healthy baby. This state-of-the-art AI models were published, and it's now pretty much across the globe, and we've, I think, helped and impacted about thousands of women, patients, people so far, and we're very, 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 we feel very lucky that we're able to do good. So what we've developed is a software platform that connects to the different systems where, in the IVF clinic, and collects all the data, different kinds of data. It could be an EMR, which is electronic medical records. It could be images or videos of embryos. I'll show you in a minute. It could be genomic data. We all collect into our dashboard, and we monitor and guide the embryologist and the clinicians in making better IVF care and making better decisions. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you. Two things: instead of looking at an embryo and evaluating an embryo and answering the almost impossible question of which embryo becomes a baby, now AI can do it. The way it does it is that it detects features that cannot be seen by the human eye, features that are correlated with different outcomes, like genetic abnormalities, like what makes an embryo viable, and gives a score. And this score is pretty much accurate. It's like a screening test that allows better decision-making in which embryo eventually we would freeze or transfer back to the uterus. So with this, what I show you here, two different scores. One is a genetic score and the other is prediction of pregnancy. We recently showed that we can reduce time to pregnancy to 1.6 cycles on average. That's it. This is phenomenal. So going down from 3-4 cycles on average to 1.6 with us, this is really, really reducing time to pregnancy. What we also do, this is a bit of behavioral, we connect the patient to her embryos. We kind of like open the black box of an IVF lab and open the incubator where the embryos are growing, and we allow the patient to view everything, 24/7 view of her embryos growing in the incubator, plus some explanations. So this is really reducing paternalism and engaging the patient and making the patient become much more engaged in the decision making and what she wants or does not want to do. When I say reducing paternalism, I get all the OBGYNs very upset with me, but it's fine. So this is where I know we do good. So this is Kiara. She's our Irish patient, and she has just an amazing story. And baby John, and they were our first AIVF baby. And so we're very, very lucky. And she tells her story of what it means to her to do an IVF or an AIVF treatment, where she's completely engaged, informed, and she made it on the first trial. So before we go, this, I think the most beautiful thing you'll see here now, this is how life begins. Take 30 seconds to view an embryo growing. Okay, so this is the egg, this is the dish. These are the first fertilization or the first sign of life. I'm gonna put music on so you can enjoy it without my explanations. Sorry, I don't know what happened here. Just this. Okay, the video is stuck, never mind. Just before we say goodbye, just to say that this embryo became a healthy baby girl who was born with our assistant. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Which is very exciting and emotional, but I do want to ask that kind of, what are your thoughts on eventually your company is based on an AI technology, but I think that, and it's very in today to say, right, that you're powered by AI. But I think on the other side, people a lot of the times, lately use it as kind of buzzword, and I don't know that people often know to differentiate, right, when it's this or that. So we'd love to hear your perspective and thoughts on that, and do you feel that this is helping you? Is it actually a challenge now that everybody's using it?
So, well, it depends. It's a good question. It depends. I was actually, a colleague of mine said, like, are you doing LLMs? And I said, we're doing something completely different. It's not LLMs, it's video analysis. And so what I just showed you, this is our data. So for each video we have the outcome, and we have to teach the AI to understand embryonic development. So this is really, really AI. And what we wanted to show is that the AI could be superior to any human being or any IVF expert. And this is why it took us so many years to really show that the AI could identify features that cannot be seen by the AI. Sorry, that they cannot be seen by human. But basically, I think there's a layer of the buzzword, and then there's a layer of the real stuff and the real science that really enhances the science and the biology. So I'm not worried of the buzzwords. Like, this is the core here. So, but it's good.
Amazing.
Good
Thanks.
buzzword.
Yeah. So we're a little bit ran out of time, but maybe we'll just kind of hijack a few more minutes, because I would love to hear from the three of you, kind of you're all very successful women, amazing women, and would love to get, your sense. Do you feel that there is something unique in the style of women's founder and CEO, in their management style, from the one hand, and also do you feel that there are specific challenges that you and as women face that potentially are not faced by men founders and CEOs?
So I'll take it. So I think the kind of like the leadership is a bit different. I think what worries me would maybe not worry a male CEO, but the leadership is much more in a style of group. We're not loners, we're like talking as a group. I say to people here that they do not work for me, they work with me. It's like we are a group of people really doing something amazing together. So it's not like reporting, so like less of an ego, really more on the core stuff. The reason I say it is that we did have a very bad experience with someone who was very, I would say, male-ish in the leadership style, and really managed to ruin many of the very good connections that we had here. So I think, he was driven by ego and by language that we don't really hear anymore, saying stuff like, who would help you? And then I said, if I were Daniel, not Daniela, would you ask who would help you? So I think this is, yeah. So I think we're better CEOs.
I totally agree with Daniela, and I recently AI related saw a joke that they asked the generative AI to draw a CEO. So of course it was a man in a suit, but I think the reality changes, and I see around me that even the men's CEO style is different, is more flexible approach, mother approach, like that. And I think it's better when you have, like Daniela said, you have the team leading the team with you. They are really doing great things because they are passionate about it, not because they must. And this is the way to move a startup forward. But of course, I also experienced the difference, and I know that men CEOs get their way easier in fundraising, for example. I'm sure you know that also from your experience. So yeah, I hope they will, the VCs will learn to better listen to us and to see our benefits. One of them is I do think that we manage the budgets better, so we can do more with less money, so that's important. Yeah, again, like the change in women's health, we have a lot of glass ceilings to break. This is one of them. Yeah.
I agree with Daniela and Hadass. I do see a change, though. I think male founders are also more inclusive in their management, and I think it's also a generation thing. And the fact that there are more women in tech I think is a very good shift, because then it allows us to accept more women in management. But I do think there is, I think we're less secure when speaking with investors. Like maybe they're afraid we're thinking about buying shoes. And yeah, I think, but we have to work on it ourselves too, I think.
We really ran out of time. Unfortunately, I think that there were tons of additional kind of questions that we could ask, but since I unfortunately ran out of time, I want to thank all three of you for sharing your story, and it's really very exciting, and also I think I'm sure I can say for the people that were listening, that's very motivating. So thank you so much, and thanks Dan for organizing all of this.
Thank you very much. Fascinating topic, fascinating presenters, and I wish you all success.
Thank you.
And for the audience, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.